Welcome all to Whispers in the Dark, where shadows breathe and forgotten voices stir. Step beyond the veil and lose yourself in a realm where reality fractures and nightmares whisper lullabies. Here we conjure true psychological thrillers, haunted tales, and horror stories that burrow deep beneath your skin and nestle in the quiet corners of your mind. Each story crackles like old film reels, unspooling secrets too heavy for daylight. Whether it's the slow unraveling of a fractured psyche or the cold caress of something unseen lurking just behind you, we promise narratives that will haunt you long after the final word is spoken. So get ready, dim the lights, slip on your headphones and listen closely for the whispers in the dark, and subscribe if you dare to return.
It started with a knock. Just one, soft and deliberate, and completely out of place on a night like this. A Tuesday cold enough to see your breath through the window. Frost starting to bloom along the corners of the glass, and the kind of silence outside that presses in on you when you live alone on the edge of town, tucked away where the streetlights thin out and the woods begin to creep closer than you'd like. I hadn't expected, anyone hadn't invited anyone, and it was too late for delivery and way too late for the Jehovah's Witnesses, so when I heard that knock at 11:17 p.m., I didn't move. Not at first, I just sat there on the couch with the TV, still playing some rerun of a cooking show. Volume too low to be anything but background static, and I waited, hoping it was just a sound I'd misheard, maybe the house settling or something, falling in the kitchen. But then came the second knock, a little louder. Same rhythm, 2 seconds apart, like someone patient was standing out there, with no intention of going away. And I finally stood up, heart already beating faster than I liked, and crept toward the door, not turning on the porch light, not speaking, not even breathing too loudly. And when I peeked through the peephole, I saw nothing, just the porch empty, the trees swaying slightly in the wind, and the road beyond that as still as a photograph. But then came a third knock, and this time it came from the back door, and I swear to God I froze right there, like my body just decided, nope, we're not dealing with that. And for a moment all I could hear was my own pulse thudding in my ears and the sound of the wind slithering through the chimney like a whisper, and it didn't make sense. No one could have gotten around the back that fast, not without running through a thick patch of gravel and dead leaves, and I would have heard it. I know I would have. And still there was no one. When I checked the back window, the porch light flickered, like it was deciding whether or not to burn out, and the shadows stretched long and thin across the yard. And something about them looked wrong, like they were pointing the wrong way, and I told myself, maybe it was a prank, some idiot teenagers trying to scare the weird guy who lives alone. But deep down I knew it wasn't that. It didn't feel like that. And when the knocking came again, this time from the window in the spare bedroom, I locked myself in the bathroom without thinking, without even grabbing my phone. And I just sat on the edge of the tub, staring at the doorknob, waiting for it to turn. And that's when the whispering started. Not loud, not clear, but right outside the bathroom door. A voice too soft to understand, like it wasn't meant for my ears, and it went on for what felt like hours sometimes. Pausing, sometimes overlapping itself, like there was more than one speaker. And I remember thinking of every ghost story I'd ever laughed at, every horror movie I'd shrugged off as dumb, and suddenly none of them felt funny anymore, and I couldn't stop shaking, and then it all just stopped. No whispers, no knocks, not even the sound of wind, just dead silence, like the world had been put on mute, and I waited not knowing how long, just frozen until I finally got the courage to open the door and step out into a house that felt hollow and heavier than it had ever felt before, like something had moved in and was now watching from just behind every corner. And when I got back to the living room, the TV was off and I never turned it off, and on the screen of the black glass, I could see a reflection of someone standing behind me. But when I turned, no one was there, and I told myself to get out. Just leave the house, go to a friend's, call someone. But my phone was gone and the landline was dead, just static. And that's when I noticed the front door was wide open, not just cracked open, swung all the way inward like it had never been locked. And outside the porch was empty, except for a single muddy footprint pointing into the house. And that's when the whispering came back this time. Not from outside. Not even from behind the door. It was coming from inside the walls, inside the vents beneath the floor, and I swear to God it said my name. Not once, but over and over, each time a little closer, and now I'm sitting here writing this, not sure why. Maybe because part of me thinks, if I don't tell someone, it'll find a way to erase me completely, like I was never here, and maybe it already has. Because every time I blink, the walls look a little less familiar, the furniture slightly rearranged, and just now the closet door opened by itself, and inside it's not clothes or shelves or boxes, it's dark and deep, and there's breathing in there, slow and wet and steady, and I think it's waiting for me to come closer, so it can pull me inside too. So please, if you're hearing this, don't come to the house, don't knock, don't whisper my name, just forget me, just forget I was ever here. It started off like any other sleepover, just me and Jamie, 2 bags of chips, a stack of horror movies, and a whole night ahead of us to laugh and scare ourselves silly. It was Halloween night, and we thought it'd be fun to stay and eat junk and watch old slasher flicks instead of going to some lame party, and everything felt right the way it always does when you're with your best friend. No school, no parents, no responsibilities, just the safe, warm bubble of your living room and the dull glow of the TV. But it all shifted around midnight. Right after we finished watching that movie about the girl who finds a man living in her attic. We were laughing at the ending, making jokes about how dumb the characters were when the knock came. It wasn't loud or aggressive, just 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door, and we both froze, looking at each other for a second, like we weren't sure if we really heard it or imagined it. Then it came again. Same pace, same rhythm, not rushed, not hesitant, just confident. And we laughed again, nervously trying to shake it off. But neither of us got up. We were too far into that eerie headspace where everything feels like it might be part of the movie. And the line between fiction and real life gets blurry. Jamie finally stood and said, "Probably some kid messing around, trick or treaters being dumb." But when he opened the door, there was no one there. Just the cold wind blowing down the empty street and the leaves scratching across the pavement like claws dragging. We stepped outside, looked both ways, checked behind the bushes. Nothing. And I remember saying, "Okay, seriously, let's just lock up and chill," because my nerves were already buzzing like a static charge under my skin. And I didn't want to admit I was scared because that's when it gets worse, right? That's when it knows. But back inside, the energy had changed. The warmth was gone. Like the house exhaled and never took another breath. And as we sat back down, something felt off about the living room. Like the shadows had shifted, or the corners stretched longer and darker than before. And then came the knock again, this time from the back door, and we both jumped. Jamie cursed and grabbed his phone for a flashlight. We went to the kitchen and peeked through the curtains, nothing. Just the backyard drenched in moonlight. The swing in the distance rocking gently, and for a second I swear I saw a shape standing just beyond the fence, not moving, not breathing, just watching. But when I blinked, it was gone. We locked the door. turned on every light in the house, and Jamie said, "Man, someone's seriously screwing with us," and tried to laugh, but it was dry and cracked, and I could tell he didn't believe it any more than I did. We decided to call his older brother, but the call wouldn't go through, just silence, then static, then this garbled voice, like someone underwater whispering too fast to understand. And Jamie threw the phone across the room, and we both stood there breathing hard and trying to pretend we were still in control. Then all the lights went out and the knocking started again. But now it was all around us, like every wall, every door, every window. Something was tapping, scratching slowly, persistently, like it was tracing the outline of the house, trying to find a way in. We locked ourselves in my bedroom, and Jamie held the closet door shut for no reason other than instinct, and I sat on the floor with my back to the bed, feeling the air grow cold and thicker, like breathing in fog, and that's when we heard it, a voice from inside the room. Not loud, not clear, just wrong. It said Jamie's name first, then mine, slowly, softly, like it was trying the names out, tasting them. And we didn't answer, didn't move, didn't even cry, because fear had swallowed every human response and left us hollow and shaking. Then the closet handle began to jiggle, not violently, just gently, like fingers testing it, slowly, carefully, and Jamie started whispering, "No, no, no," over and over, and I reached for him, but he didn't let go. And then the door creaked open just an inch, just enough for the dark inside to spill out. And that voice came again from inside the closet, this time saying, "I found you." And the next thing I remember is waking up on the floor alone, the sun streaming through the window and the house silent, and Jamie was gone, just gone. His phone on the floor, the closet door wide open and nothing inside. No sign of struggle, no blood, no noise, just absence. And when I tried to tell people, they said, he must have left in the night, ran away or gone home. But I know what I saw, I know what we heard, and now every Halloween night at exactly midnight it comes back. The knocking, the whispering, and always the same voice asking the same question. Can I come in? And I don't answer. I never answer because I know if I do, I won't be here when the sun rises, just like Jamie. I was halfway through a 3-day business trip when it happened, and it still doesn't make sense, no matter how many times I replay it in my head. It was a Tuesday night, and I'd checked into this run-down motel just off the highway. One of those places with dim, buzzing lights, an old carpet that smells like mildew, and a front desk clerk who wouldn't stop staring at my hands like he was trying to count my fingers. The kind of place you only stay in when every other option is gone. I had a presentation in the morning and just wanted to get some sleep. So I triple-locked the door, turned off the light, and lay down with the TV playing some low-volume cooking show for background noise. I remember drifting off, slowly letting the stress melt away when the knock came. At first I thought it was someone in another room, maybe a drunk guy trying the wrong door, but then it came again, louder and slower, like whoever was on the other side wanted me to hear it, wanted me to know it was meant for me. I sat up, heart thumping, listening. 3 distinct knocks followed by silence, and then another 3 and another. It wasn't frantic or aggressive, just wrong, methodical, too slow and too spaced out to be anything casual. I grabbed my phone, 1:47 a.m. I texted my co-worker just to feel connected to someone, asked him if he ever stayed in this dump, and before he could respond, the knocking started again, only this time it wasn't at the door. It was at the window. The motel had those heavy curtains you find in cheap roadside places, thick and ugly with decades of cigarette smoke baked into the fabric, and the window behind it rattled faintly like something was gently pressing against the glass. I didn't want to look, but I had to. You know that feeling? Like if you don't look, it'll just keep going and drive you insane. So I peeled the curtain back just an inch, And there was nothing, just the empty parking lot bathed in the orange glow of a flickering streetlight and my rental car sitting untouched. But the second I let the curtain fall back, the knocking returned. But from the door, again 3 knocks perfectly spaced, then a pause. Then 3 more. I finally said, "Who is it?" And the voice that answered didn't sound like a person, not quite. It was low and whispering, and so close to the door it felt like it was speaking directly into the peephole. "Let me in. I'm cold." But the way it said it was wrong, like it didn't understand the sentence, like it was repeating something it had heard before and was testing it out on me. I said no, and backed away from the door, heart pounding, suddenly aware of how thin the walls were, how flimsy the lock felt, how alone I really was. And then the handle jiggled, not forcefully, just enough to let me know it was still out there. Then silence for what felt like hours. I didn't move. Just sat on the bed with my phone in my lap, debating whether to call the front desk or the police. But what would I even say? "Hi." Someone's politely knocking on my door and whispering weird things. Then, just as I started to feel the tension ease a little, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I opened it, and it just said, "Let me in. I'm cold," and I felt something in my brain twist, because it was word for word what the voice said, and I hadn't told anyone. Not even in the text to my co-worker. I stared at the screen, and another message popped up. "I see you." And that's when I realized the TV was off. I never turned it off, and I hadn't touched the remote since I got into bed. The room was completely dark, except for the soft blue glow of my phone screen. And that's when I saw it in the reflection of the TV just behind me. Something standing in the corner of the room, tall and still and just barely out of focus, like it was part of the wall, except I knew it wasn't there before I turned around so slowly and the corner was empty, but I could still feel it like heat on my skin or static crawling up my spine. And the knocking started again, this time fast and erratic all over the room. Not just the door, the walls, the ceiling, the window, even from behind the bathroom mirror. It was like the room was surrounded by invisible hands trying to find a way in. And the voice came back whispering from all directions, not begging anymore, but angry, like I'd failed some kind of test. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes, it was morning. Sunlight spilling through the curtains, and everything looked exactly the same as the night before. But when I stepped outside, the front desk was empty. The lobby abandoned, not a single car in the lot, not even my rental, just dust and silence. And when I walked to the road and looked back, the motel wasn't there, just a rusted sign half buried in weeds that said closed since 1989. And the last thing I remember before blacking out was hearing that same slow knock from deep inside my skull 3 times, then nothing. The first knock came 3 nights after the funeral. It was around 2 a.m, and I was still sitting on the couch half drunk from the scotch I'd been nursing. Since sunset, the house was dark except for the flicker of the TV, which was playing one of those old black and white films my wife used to love, the ones she'd make me sit through, while she quoted the lines before the actors even spoke them. And now the silence in the house felt so loud, it was unbearable. I'd muted the TV hours ago and just let it run, because the sound of people, even fake ones, helped fill the gaps. But then came the knock, just 3 soft, deliberate taps on the front door, and my stomach turned because it wasn't the sound itself that scared me, but the fact that I recognized it exactly. She used to knock like that every time she came back from her walks or grocery runs. 3 gentle taps followed by a pause like a secret code, and in my drunken haze my brain latched onto it like a lifeline. I stood up, swaying a little, and went to the door, and even though everything in me screamed not to, I opened it. There was nothing. Just the empty porch bathed in pale moonlight and the yard beyond, silent except for the wind moving through the dead leaves. No cars, no footsteps, no people. I stepped out, looked around, and muttered her name, half ashamed of myself, before stumbling back inside and locking the door. I told myself it was a dream, or maybe the wind or a branch, but the next night it happened again. And this time I watched the door from the couch, all night waiting for it, and at 1:58 a.m., 3 knocks, clear and slow, like fingers wrapped in flesh tapping directly on the wood. I didn't open it this time. I sat frozen, staring at the door, waiting for something to move beneath the gap or press against the frosted window. But nothing happened. And when I finally crept up and looked outside, the street was empty again. No footprints in the frost, nothing but my own reflection, staring back and looking more hollow than I'd ever seen it the third night. I set up my phone to record the front hallway, motion-triggered and placed a chair in front of the door with a pile of keys on it, figuring if someone opened it, I'd hear the crash. But when I played the video back the next morning, the only thing on it was the sound of those same 3 knocks, and the chair never moved. The keys never fell, and the door never opened, and yet the knocks came just the same as before, louder, this time almost impatient, and the audio caught something else too. Just after the knocks, a faint voice so low it almost sounded like static, whispering my name, not shouting, it just breathing it through the speaker as though it were coming from inside the walls. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat in the kitchen chain smoking and reading old texts from her, trying to find some rational explanation, because grief does things to the brain, and maybe I was going mad. But on the 4th night something changed. It didn't knock. It rang the doorbell, which no one ever used, and when I went to the peephole the porch light was out and I couldn't see anything but blackness, not even the shape of someone standing there, just pure absence. And when I whispered her name, the doorbell rang again instantly, like a response so fast it felt like it was waiting for me to say something. Then the whispering started again, this time not through the speakers, but behind me inside the house. I turned every light on, checked every room, every closet, every window. Nothing. Then my phone lit up a notification from the motion camera, and when I opened it, the footage showed the door slowly creaking open by itself, just a few inches, then stopping, like someone was there staring in, debating whether to come inside, and the keys never moved, the chair never budged, and yet the door had opened, and behind it, just for a second, the edge of something dark, like a figure whose face the camera never caught. Just a sliver of movement that didn't belong. I tried sleeping at a motel that night, but it followed me. The knocks came at the motel door at exactly 2 a.m., and the voice whispered my name again and again through the vents, and the phone in the room rang, and when I answered it, all I heard was her laugh. Not how she laughed in life, but twisted like it was being played backward through a broken tape recorder. And now I'm back at home because there's no point in hiding from it anymore. It wants me to open the door. It wants me to believe it's her. And the awful thing is, some part of me does, because I miss her so much. It physically hurts. And when I sit there staring at that door and those knocks come each night, the temptation grows stronger and stronger. And maybe tonight I'll finally answer it. Maybe tonight I'll open the door and see her standing there smiling just like she used to. And if I do, and something steps through that isn't her, maybe I won't care, because living without her feels worse than whatever's waiting on the other side of that wood, waiting so patiently, whispering my name again and again and again. I never used to be afraid of being home alone. In fact, I liked it. The quiet, the control. No one to bother me, just me and my younger brother Connor. For a weekend while our parents were out of town, it felt like freedom, pizza video games, horror movies. Till we passed out on the couch, everything felt normal until around 12:17 a.m., when the first knock came from the back door. Just one knock, soft and slow, like it didn't want to wake us but wanted us to know it was there. I paused. The movie muted, the TV listened. The air felt heavier, like the house was holding its breath. After a full minute it came again, louder, more certain, not urgent, just patient. I thought maybe wind, maybe a branch swaying until it happened again. But this time, at the front door, Connor sat up. Confused, asking what it was, and I lied. Said it was probably the neighbour, or the pipes or something, but he looked at me, and we both knew better. The knock came again, but now it was on the side window, and that's when the power went out, the TV, the lamps, everything died, and the house sank into that unnatural blackness, where you can't even see your own hand. I grabbed my phone. Flashlight flickered on, but the battery was at 4%, no service, no Wi-Fi, just dead space and our own breathing. We tried to laugh it off, make dumb jokes, until the knock came again. Now right behind us on the sliding glass door that opened to the deck. 3 knocks this time, spaced out evenly, and behind the knocks, something else. A sound like fingernails slowly dragging across the glass, and then a whisper. My name, low and raspy like it was being pushed through. Broken lungs. Connor clutched my arm and whispered, "It's at all the doors." And I didn't know what to say because he was right, everywhere. We turned. There were sounds, soft taps, quiet, dragging breaths like whatever it was circling us, mapping the house, not trying to break in. Just waiting for us to open something, anything. We shut the blinds, locked every door. But then the tapping started on the windows. Upstairs windows that couldn't be reached without a ladder or wings, and when we checked them, we saw handprints, long and greasy, smudged across the glass. Not normal hands, they were too long, too thin, like spider legs pressed into the glass with nails that left faint scratches like it had been testing the strength of the glass. Measuring us. The fog rolled in thicker. Outside, then inside, the lights flickered once, and when they did, the TV turned on for a second. Showing static, but layered beneath it, was a voice, not a scream, not a word, but a sound that made both of us flinch like it hit some ancient part of the brain. Meant for running from predators, then silence again. Then footsteps upstairs, deliberate, slow, like someone barefoot walking across the hallway. I knew there was no one else here, no way in. And yet I could hear them pacing just above us, back and forth, then stopping right above. Where we stood, I grabbed a knife from the kitchen. Connor grabbed a flashlight, and we crept upstairs. Slowly the stairs groaned with each step, but the hallway was empty. Every room was empty until we reached the end of the hall and saw that the attic door was slightly open, just an inch wide enough to notice, and the string to pull it down was swaying like someone had just gone up or down, and when I pulled it, the ladder dropped fast and hard, like it had been waiting for me. And that's when the knocking came again, but now from inside the walls we backed away, and the walls seemed to breathe, seemed to pulse like something was alive inside them. We shut the attic and ran to my room, locked the door, shoved my dresser against it, and just sat there in the dark, trying not to cry, trying not to listen to the faint knocking that had started again on the other side of the door, slow, rhythmic, patient, like it had all night. And then came the voice again, this time from the vents. It called my name and then Connor's. But the voice was wrong, not just in pitch but in tone, like it was stitched together from different recordings of us, like it was learning how we sounded, learning how to be us. Then it said something new. Let me in, just let me in. And we both screamed and covered our ears, but the voice didn't stop it. kept repeating it softer each time until it was barely more than a breath, then dead silence. And we waited like that for what felt like hours until morning came, and light finally pierced the windows. When our parents got back, we didn't say much, just that the power went out, that we got scared. But when I walked past the front door, I saw something drawn into the fog on the glass, a message written in long strokes from an inhuman finger. It said, "Next time, don't lock the door." And underneath that, a smudge that looked like a face distorted, stretched like something had tried to press its head through the glass to see us. And ever since then, every night, at exactly 12:17, I hear a single knock, soft, slow, from somewhere in the house, and every time I check, every time it's nothing, until the knocking starts again.
If you enjoyed the journey and survived it, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who sleeps too easily, and subscribe for more original horror stories delivered straight into your nightmares. And if you have a true tale or twisted idea you'd like me to bring to life, leave it in the comments below. I read them all. Some of my favorite stories come from minds just like yours. And so the final candle is burned out, but some stories never really end. They wait in the corners of your mind, and now so must you. You have heard the incantations of the demised, the shadows sworn to secrecy. But what slipped through, what followed you back into the light? If these stories stirred something inside you, if they made you hesitate before turning off the lights, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because next time we're going deeper. So rest while you can, because next time the story just might be about you.